Now that I'm fired up and I'm mad, let's talk about something for a minute. Let's talk about a word I hear get thrown around quite a bit now more than ever: privilege. I've born and raised in Southeast Texas. I've never heard of no, I never heard of this thing called white privilege until somebody had to explain it to me. I'm gonna tell you right now, there is privilege in this world, in this country we live in, but it ain't got nothing to do with skin color. The only two colors of privilege in this country are blue and green. Let me explain. If you have green privilege, then you have lots of money. You can do whatever you want, and no one's going to bat an eyelash. Nobody's going to care about what you do. Case in point, Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody cared about what he did until a bunch of parents started blowing up the phones at the police station. Then they had to get involved. Up until then, nobody cared about what he did. Nobody cared about what he was doing behind closed doors. Why? Because he had money. He could buy his way out of anything. And we see that over and over again. That's green privilege. Now let me tell you something about what's blue or liberal privilege. If you have liberal privilege, you can do and say whatever you want. Nobody cares. Because you're on that side of the aisle. If you have liberal privilege, you get a pass on everything. Case in point, if you have liberal privilege, multiple women can come out and accuse you of harassment/assault, and you get a pass. You get a pass because you're on the blue side of the aisle, so everybody thinks automatically you're a good person. But let one person come out and accuse somebody on the red side of the aisle of assault or harassment, no matter how long ago it was, and there's people outside of the courthouse chanting and screaming and yelling, pounding on the doors, yelling, "Burn it down." Another example. You can riot, loot, and burn an entire country for months and cause $2 billion worth of damage. And what happens? Politicians raise money for your bail and tell you that you are the voice of the unheard and that you can continue to do what you were doing and nobody's going to stop you. If you have liberal privilege, you can embolden criminals to attack police officers and you get cheered for it. If you have liberal privilege, you can make threats against a sitting U.S. president for almost 4 years. And you know what happens? Everybody claps and cheers for you. But if somebody on the other side of the aisle makes any comment, they have to be shut down. They have to be canceled. If you have liberal privilege, you can control what other people say and see on social media. You can control an entire narrative and nobody's the wiser. What's another good one? Oh, yes. If you have liberal privilege, then guess what? Case in point of yesterday. Mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado takes place, and the immediate, and I almost let this go because of what one individual had said. I almost let this go because even I did it, because when I saw news of mass shooting, I immediately assumed, okay, it's a cookie cutter scenario just like it always is. Almost all of them have the same template. Only to find out that I was wrong, and I'll admit I was wrong. But you can go on social media and say that, and talk about how you're afraid of white men with rifles. Saying that a white man with a rifle is more dangerous than a pandemic. All you celebrities, people in the news, immediately jumped on it. I haven't seen not one of you recant your statement or apologize for what you said. Even the niece of the Vice President of the United States, now I'll give her this, what she said wasn't near as bad as what 90% of what I read said. Now, granted, I'll admit, we all have made that mistake. I'll give you a good example. I remember this. Even though I was young, I still remember this, and I've actually gone back and done my own research. The D.C. sniper situation. 4 months. We all thought there was a crazy white dude in a van sitting in hiding spots and shooting people. Only to find out that we were all wrong. He was black, and not only was he black, he was Muslim. Just saying. If you have liberal privilege, you can immediately control the narrative before the facts are even available. If you have liberal privilege, you can be openly and blatantly racist. And nobody says a word to you. Speaking of that, you can also peddle reverse racism as a form of social justice, and it seems to be acceptable. You know the difference between a person of color and a person of non-color when they experience racism? When a person of color experiences racism, and yes, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does, and racism on any level is horrible and it should never happen. You cannot call yourself a person of any faith that I know of and be a racist. Let's just get that out the way. And it's horrible. But that person can immediately make a claim with or without proof, and people instantly believe it. A non-person of color claims racism. What do they get told? Shut up and take it. Think I'm wrong? You can look it up for yourself and find out. There are examples all over the place. So, to everybody who has ever, to else, all of a sudden, since I've heard this phrase, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it in my own way. All of you people who use your money and your political power to control people, control the narrative, you do exist, whether the general population wants to admit it or not. To all of you liberals and you billionaires that are pulling strings to push a narrative, check your own privilege.